The nature of the settlement of this conflict in concept has not changed for 70 years. When the British were here, the British came here in 1917, winning as part of World War I from the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire breaks as a result of World War I. The British are here, but unlike other places, this has not become a colony or part of the Commonwealth. They receive a mandate from the League of Nations to help the Jewish people reach statehood. That's the mandate they receive from the League of Nations, and that's kind of their mandate from the world. So the British try to manage this situation, and it becomes increasingly conflictual. The Zionists and their effort to create a homeland for the Jewish people increasingly clash with the Palestinians who oppose that. And at one point, pretty much the British say, enough. We've had it. We need to come to some sort of solution in how these people can live in this land. They bring here various commissions, and in 1937, they come up with a partition idea, that the only way to resolve anything around here is to divide this area west of the Jordan River between a Jewish homeland and an Arab homeland, and that will be the end of it. And this becomes the governing idea. 1947, the British bring this to a vote in the United Nations. The inheritor to the League of Nations, they say, okay, we're done with our mandate. We don't want to be in this place anymore. Take it off our hands. We suggest partition. The United Nations accepts this idea, sends its own missions, decides, again, different borders this time, but again, partition. And every time a resolution of the conflict is on the table, partition is always the governing idea. And it's always according to the idea that the Jewish part should include as many Jews and as few Arabs as possible, and that the Arab part should include as many Arabs and as few Jews, if at all, as possible. So the notion that demography and where people live will determine the partition has been the dominant idea for more than 70 years. Now, beginning from 1967, the only thing that is on the table is the West Bank and Gaza. No one thinks of going back to earlier partition plans. But it took, even the Israeli left, it took a while to be willing to give all the West Bank and Gaza and all of East Jerusalem. That's mostly development of the 90s. For many, many years, the left, the Labour Party, thought that territorial compromise would be possible for much less. And until the late 80s, it was hoping to do it not with the Palestinians, but with Jordan, who ruled that area from 48 to 67. So the basic idea hasn't changed. And the fact that it's the West Bank and Gaza hasn't changed. The things that have changed over the years is that Jordan drew back in '88 and said that they would no longer take control of the West Bank. This is for the Palestinians. So as long as you believe that this is a conflict over national independence and territory, then the parameters are clear and have been unchanged for a while. What happened in the past decade, and people from the right will say we always thought, is that people are skeptical that the Palestinians will settle for that, will want just that, and that they don't want to go back in time to when there was no Jewish settlement here in Israel. Now, when the West Bank came under Israeli rule in 1967, there began the settlement movement. Now, the settlement movement has a lot of parents. One of the parents is religion. It's this messianic idea of coming to biblical land. The victory in the War of 1967 was so dramatic that people, especially religious people, viewed it as an act of God. So that's one parent. Another parent is the traditional notion that the borders of the state of Israel will be determined by where Jews live. So what the settlers set out to do is to, as they say, set facts on the ground. And indeed, in that respect, they have been successful. The negotiations in Camp David, the negotiations over the 90s, recent negotiations for peace have all made it clear that certain settlements, the large ones, the ones that are closest to the border, the ones people are talking about 80% of the settler population, will be part of Israel in any future settlement, with some land swaps to compensate the Palestinians for the land that was taken. So this was the settlers' view, some messianic view, and also some view of like, let's take this opportunity to expand Israel's borders. It has always worked in the past. And also some desire to create facts on the ground and to make it impossible to ever have a Palestinian state. We're no longer there. I think we're at the point where we're fighting for the last 2%, really. But as you know, often in negotiations, the last 2% are when everything gets violent. But I think we're there. We're not at the point where even those on the right believe anymore in the possibility of a greater Israel and no Palestinian state.